Hello and welcome to the Coffee House Writers Group podcast. I'm your host, J. Bryan Jones. More on that later. First, you may want to know what this podcast is about. If you are a creative person or just like created things, you like books, movies, film, this podcast is for you, especially for all of you writers out there, any other artistic people. Our group is mostly about helping writers write. So let's go ahead and get this started. Podcast number 1. Alright, we will have a guest on the show, but first I want to get more into what we are about. If you ask any author, screenwriter, what advice they have for writing, their first bit of advice is typically going to be, write. And here at Coffee House Writers Group, we want to help your writing be the best it can be. We are centralized in the Los Angeles, Orange County, Southern California area, and we have critique groups where you can just come in, read your work to a bunch of other writers, get instant feedback, and not only improve your work, but improve your skill as a writer over time. I have been hosting the Long Beach Critique Group since spring 2015, and I have seen a lot of regular members improve their writing tremendously. My writing personally, I think, has improved, and I've even managed to gather a few friends out of it. Writing is a solitary endeavor, but it doesn't have to be solitary forever, and it can't be solitary forever. You are eventually going to reach a point where someone else has to read your work, if you ever plan on publishing it, and I assume that you do. So it's a great idea not just to have your friends and family be your beta readers for you, but to get some perspective from others in the same field as you, others who have the same struggles. And all you have to do is show up to one of our critique groups and you will be welcomed. We do not distinguish the old from the new. There's no initiation process. You come, you participate, and at the end of it, you get some free editing advice. Take into consideration whatever writing advice you want to, leave at the table whenever you don't, and you can only get better with more information. And it only stands to benefit you to know how your work is being perceived by others. So again, my name is J. Bryan Jones. Please call me J, just the letter. In addition to being the Long Beach Critique Group leader, I am the Director of New Media on the Board of Directors. And today I have on the founder, CEO, and president of Coffee House Writers Group, Christine Marie Bryant. She is a very lovely person that I've got to know over the last year plus. Extremely hardworking, got this group started from scratch, and her biggest goal is to help people, which I'm sure you will more than realize when you hear her speak. On this podcast, we'll be having conversations with prominent members of the writing community, including Coffee House Writers Group. We will also have shop talks, which are lessons on writing. And we'll discuss certain topics throughout the entertainment business. In 2014, I knew my work wasn't getting any better from just looking at it another time. I needed somebody else's eyes on it. And that's when I turned to a website that my friend had told me about to just meet people called Meetup.com. And there were several writing groups available, but none of them fit my odd work schedule at the time. And then a new group popped up close to me called Coffee House Writers Group in Long Beach. I attended their meet and greet and then their critique group and never looked back. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Christine Marie Bryant. Thank you so much for coming.
You're very welcome.
Thanks. I know you drive from a long way from Diamond Bar. Mm-hmm. You drive all over the place.
Yeah, traffic today was an hour and a half. So.
Yeah, yikes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll drive me nuts completely.
It's a good time to think about what you're going to write.
It is. Also good to listen to books on tape. Get your inspiration flowing, right?
I was listening to a book on the way over.
Oh yeah, what were you listening to?
It's called The Power of a Whisper.
The Power of a Whisper. Yeah, so you started over in Dimas, which was, I guess, a shorter drive for you, right? Mm-hmm. How long ago did you start Dimas?
6 years ago. It was about a little over 6 years ago.
6 years ago. And then, was it called the Coffee House Writers Group from the start?
Yes, from the very, very beginning.
From the very start, because it was in a coffee house?
Well, what happened was I decided to create a meetup on my own, and I was trying to get some writers together to help me finish my book. And Meetup asked me, what do you want to call it? And I was drinking a cup of coffee, and at the time I was wishing I was in a coffee house because I love being in coffee houses.
Mm-hmm.
They're just so amazing, the feeling of being in there. So I just said, well, Coffee House Writers Group. So that's how that came about. It wasn't anything that I was thinking on for a long time. It was just kind of Meetup put me on the spot, and that's what it came up with. So it's stuck ever since.
So you started this meetup to help with the group. Didn't you try other writers groups before that?
Before I started my own meetup, I did go. My first attempt to find other writers was to go search out other writers groups.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably went to about 6 or 7 writers groups that I found on Meetup to see if they could help me finish my book.
Mm-hmm. And why didn't they work out?
For a lot of different reasons. And honestly, by the 3rd, 4th one, I started making lists of what I would like in a writer's group and what I didn't like in a writer's group. So when I finally figured out that this wasn't working and I just was going to create my own, I took those lists of what I liked and what I didn't like, what I saw was working, what I saw was not working, and I implemented them into creating the Coffee House Writers Group.
Okay, so what things did you saw that was working that you took from it? These other groups.
I don't like homework.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
So, a few of the writers groups required me to read 6 or 7 manuscripts or stories and critique them before I even came to the group. In return, I would get my manuscript or my chapter critiqued by these other people. But at the same time, there was no guarantee that all these people were going to critique your stuff, and there was no guarantee that you were going to like any of their critiques. So to me, it didn't seem productive enough. And so I wanted to axe the homework. I didn't want there to be any homework requirements. Also, there were a lot of groups that they were all written. So, like I just said, you give the written to each other, and I didn't want to do that. I liked the one group I went to that was verbal. I really enjoyed that. I remember getting up on the front of the group with the microphone, and I was all excited to read my chapter. And I thought, this is so cool. I get to read in front of all these people. This is kind of an amazing feeling. And I knew it was timed, but I wasn't really keeping track of the time. And I hadn't even gotten to the end of my chapter. There was probably about 3 or 4 sentences left in my chapter.
Oh, no.
And I was dinged. I was told to get down. My time was up. And I was kind of startled because I'm like, well, I only have a few more sentences, but it was a timed thing. And I definitely felt like I got sucked back in time to the Gong Show. Someone just gonged me. I can't even tell you how depressing that was. So I thought, I'm not going to time anybody. If people come to these groups, I'm not going to time them and gong them and, tell them to stop, because that, I think, stifles creativity.
Yeah, there's going to be a natural good breaking point for most readings, right?
Right. Yeah. And for the most part, in the last 6+ years that we've been doing this, we're all adults. And if we all are put the responsibility back on ourselves, we, as a community, as a group, we can make sure that everybody gets to read.
Right. So there's going to be a lot of skeptics to the non-timing thing. How do you make sure that works, that people don't go super long or I guess super short probably isn't a problem, but how do you make sure that people don't just take over the group with trying to read half their book?
I'm not going to lie. There have been several people that feel like that's okay. For me, it's all a learning experience. So what we try to do is the facilitators try to explain the concept before the group. Mm-hmm. We explain it on the website. We explain it all over the place. Sometimes it doesn't hit home, and they do try to read for a longer period of time that is acceptable for the amount of people that are there. And it all depends on the situation. Every situation's different. I know I have, as a facilitator myself, let people read their whole chapter, even though it took 15, 20 minutes. Because at the end of that 15, 20 minutes, they could, themselves can feel the vibe of the rest of the 15 people in the room.
You took too long.
There's a vibe. And it's almost like you tell a person not to touch the stove because it's hot. Right? Mm-hmm. And you can tell them that all day long. But they're not going to learn until they touch the stove. And it's hot.
And they go too long and there's like, oh, I could totally feel it now. Especially when I guess they're comparing themselves to how long everybody else is reading.
Correct. So it's a learning process. And I try to explain to everybody in the group that it is a learning process for everybody. It's even a learning process for the 15 people that are waiting for that person to stop reading. And another one of my critiques is that you will get better critiques if you would have cut that down 2 or 3
right.
ways.
They can be more specific and targeted to that particular section.
Yes.
So it's more like concentrated.
Yeah, I mean, the best critique they're going to get is that needed to be shorter. So, and if that doesn't work, there have been times where me and other facilitators have, asked to politely talk to that person before or after the group and kind of explain to them one-on-one how it's more beneficial for them to shorten their piece. So there's different steps in addressing the situation and solving the problem rather than, directly just gonging them off the stage.
Yeah, it's like...
Yeah, or just saying, okay, that's enough, bye, next.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that wouldn't make them happy and everybody else would be like uncomfortable, cringy for what's going on, I guess. Because you don't want people to say, oh man, that's how I'll be treated when I read. I better not read now.
Well, it's funny because, I don't know if you've seen this as a facilitator yourself, but, you've got a person over here reading, and then you've got 3 other people looking at you. like,
yeah, where
they're like, looking at you like, are you going to cut them
stop
off?
Yeah.
And if looks could kill, they're not making the reader feel uncomfortable. They're looking at either, me or you or the facilitator, and they're just like, now?
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're going to do that when, especially people that have been coming for a while and they know the rules really well and they know how it functions. When something goes off, they'll look to you right away. It's like, oh, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? They're talking, the person who just read is talking back to their critiquer. Ooh, how's he going to handle this right now? Let's see what happens. It's like, they know. So it's like, they're looking at me and it's like, I don't know, pointing it out to me as if I don't know.
I don't know. It's all a learning process. And I try to stress that we're all in this together. We're all rowing the boat together. We're all a community. So we all got to work together. And I think that's what makes these groups with the coffee house work so well, is that is a number one priority, is that we're all working together.
Yeah, it's pretty adamant of you where one group doesn't work, another, and you ended up trying 6 or 7. I mean, that's really a lot before, like, people give up, right? I read on Twitter, blogs, things that a lot of times writers groups are the death of authors, the death of writers, and
I know why. Yeah, I mean, if the people that, were going to those other groups, that was very discouraging to me. I'm not easily discouraged, though. But I can totally see somebody going to one of those groups and just being discouraged and not wanting to go back and try another group or be involved in another group, or maybe, the whole writing thing just gets tossed out the window because they went to one bad group. I mean, I think that's another reason why I am so adamant about growing the Coffee House Writers Group, because I've never heard that from anybody that has been...
That they wanted to stop writing or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or that it's a bad experience, or...
Yeah, I've never heard that either.
No.
From Coffee House Writers Group.
They just keep coming back.
Yeah, my first group that I ever came to was Coffee House Writers Group, where we the two of us met December 2014. Mm-hmm. So we've known each other a little bit now. And so I went, and it's like, this is great. I'm going to do another group too, because more of a good thing must be better, right?
Right.
I go to this other group, and I noticed immediately the differences. I kind of felt like, because it was my first one, that Coffee House Writers Group must be the norm, but it's totally not. This other group, they had like the homework thing, but the biggest reason why I didn't want to come back, the second biggest reason first was the facilitator. He was not like what I thought that the facilitator should be. The way that they were bringing everyone up, you're extremely positive, and you keep things positive, and you're extremely constructive, which I don't feel like he was. And then everybody there, they didn't feel like my peers. Coffee House Writers Group attracts a lot of people that I feel a connection with, writer-wise. And this other group was just a lot of really out of touch old white guys.
Okay.
I mean, nothing bad against only like old white guys. They're in our Coffee House Writers Group, but it's like that's all there was.
Oh yeah. Well, we do have a lot of old white guys in our group too, and I love all my old white guys in our group. But I think the facilitator is definitely responsible for setting the energy. And the vibe.
Mm-hmm. You want to be welcoming to everyone, increase diversity, and for me, these were not like my people, so I didn't feel comfortable there. Or not only that, I don't feel comfortable around any homogenous group where everybody's just like the same. It doesn't matter if like they're all young black women or old white men. That's like, if everybody's the same, even if they all looked like me, tanned to / olive skin guys my age that were all exactly like me, I still wouldn't feel comfortable there. But I guess Coffee House Writers Group has this, because of the rules that you haven't said, they're so welcoming that it really helps people from all walks of life want to come in and stay.
This is true. And I actually don't like calling them rules.
What do you like to call it? Guidelines?
Guidelines.
Okay. Guidelines.
Yeah, because I break rules. So another thing that I really, 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 really wanted in the group, the vibe, is that nobody was above anybody else.
Right.
Nobody's below anybody else. I wanted somebody that just walked off the street and said, I want to start writing a book, to feel completely comfortable sitting right next to somebody that's had 3-4 published books.
And you got to establish that right from the get-go, because the new people, when they come in, I'm here now. Crap, what do I do? I've never been to one of these before. And most of the people that come, I'll ask them, have you been to anything like this before? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say no.
That's cool. That's very cool. I definitely wanted to give something to the writers that I that I didn't find. Mm-hmm. So when I went out on my little exposition, hunt for my writers group, and I wasn't finding what I wanted, I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to create something that I want.
So did you have in mind what you wanted when you started to look out in these writers groups?
Well, I'm going to say probably around the third group of, completely getting discouraged, I started thinking, this is not what I want. kind of like dating, you know? You go out with somebody for 3 times, or you go out with 3 blind dates, and you're like, yeah, you start to look at all the things that you don't want. So I started making a list of things that I wanted, and yeah, and I just thought, you know, I can't be the only person out there that wants a group like this. So it was pretty amazing to have 16 people show up at
The very first Coffee House Writers Group was 16?
16 people.
Nice, that's a good night.
16 people. It was amazing.
16 people. For being a brand new group, it's going to be hard for people to find on Meetup?
I think Meetup is a godsend, really. I mean, I love Meetup with all my heart. I've already created 3 different groups, including the Coffee House Writers Group, plus 2 other groups. But I love them because what they do is they put out this opportunity for you to sign up for free. And then for free, you tell Meetup what your interests are. So now Meetup knows who you are, where you live, and what your interests are. So for people like me that want to go on there and say, you know, I'm looking for everybody that's in San Dimas that likes to write. So I created this writers group in San Dimas because I love San Dimas, even though I live in Diamond Bar. I grew up in San Dimas. I did it for kind of like a good luck charm too, because my childhood.
It was your home.
Yeah, for about 11 years it was my home. So, and it was a positive time in my life. So I wanted to create more positive in that city. So I put this out there, and then Meetup gets my little Meetup, and they send that link to everybody that lives in San Dimas that put writing as an interest. So I was growing pretty quickly.
Nice.
So, but at the same time, you know, you get all these people that RSVP. You can go there and like nobody show up. So it was a little intense.
And you've had nobody show up before?
Yes, in the last 6.5 years that we've been doing this, a little over 6 years. Yeah, there's been groups where during the holidays we've got dry spells, especially when it was just in San Dimas, and then I was expanding to other days and other times to see if I can accommodate other members. There were quite a few times where I was the only one there. Yes.
I'm sure that's like what a lot of startups go through. Restaurants, like, oh, there's nobody here. And then a few years later, oh, it's busting out the seams.
Yeah, I just try to not get discouraged and use the time productively to do my writing. I kept thinking that was, you know, the universe saying, Christine, all right, stop running the group. You need to write. So,
So what writing were you doing at the time that you were going to all of these writers groups and then eventually started your own?
I have a few novels on the burner. I have a book that I really want to finish at some point. It's called Emily's Story. It's about a girl. That's all I'm going to say.
About a girl?
It's about a girl. Her name's Emily. It's fiction.
Okay.
A little bit of fantasy, but it sets the tone sets in a realistic situation. Setting. It's very realistic, and but then the fantasy creeps in. So, we can talk about that in another podcast. But I'm very, very much close to that, and it's three novels. It's a 3-book series. But I'm also working on another novel. It's another fantasy, and then I'm also working on a self-help book for women called Every Girl Needs a Pair of Black Heels.
Pair of black heels, so that they feel confident in it, I guess, is the thing behind that, right?
The thing behind that is that was a challenge for us little girls. Is one of the very first challenges that we went through was trying to walk in heels.
Something I did not go through.
Which is okay. Totally okay. But it's cute because I went through it and I saw my daughter go through it, and now I see my granddaughter go through it. So I think it's adorable. But it's a challenge, and we try to conquer it. We try to walk in these heels when we're 3 or 4 years old. Obviously, they're like size 8 heels. You could fit like 3 of our feet in it, right? And we accomplish it, and we feel great about it. And we just, that's amazing. And the book is basically about building that confidence back up. And what if we approached all our challenges in our lives as though we were that 3 or 4-year-old little girl walking in those heels. So, yeah. And that's like a 12-part series I'm working on.
I mean, that's also, it feels like it implies, because like a little girl, those black heels are not meant for their size feet. They're not meant for them. So is that extending to that challenge of, yeah, you may not fit for this challenge, but you can, when you accomplish it, it'll feel great?
Yeah. Well, we see, as little girls, we see all the older women in our lives doing it. So it's something that we can aspire to and challenge ourselves to. And I think even growing up, I don't know if you know, but the heels get taller and taller and taller.
Until they go to 80s, big old, which I fortunately skipped. I was born in 88, I guess, but I mean, you still see them from time to time.
Yeah, and the whole concept is a challenge that we all fell in love with, and I think that's an explanation, honestly, for why a lot of women love heels. It was a challenge that we fell in love with, and that shoe represents it.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that's something I wasn't quite sure about. I kind of felt like they wanted to be a little bit taller.
That too. And that could be a metaphor about them just wanting to be taller in life, you know? Looked at. And it makes us feel, shoes also make us feel sexy. They also make us feel confident.
Yeah.
They also make us.
Makes your legs look longer.
Yeah. So it's just, there's so many like metaphors in whole situation that I'm going to explore in these books.
And you try to help women a lot, because one of the other meetup groups that you mentioned that you created is Women's RAIN?
Yes.
RAIN. What does RAIN stand for?
RAIN stands for Relax, Awaken, Ignite, and Nurture. So it's relax your nerves, awaken your abilities, ignite your passions, nurture your reality. Well, one of the main focuses we do in the RAIN group is I encourage these women to write. So I haven't really...
Crossing over a little bit.
I haven't really gotten too far from the writers group with this, but I believe with all my heart that writing is one of the most amazing things that we can do to help ourselves. And I saw all this amazing positive things that were happening in the Coffee House Writers group with men and women. But I also saw some women, especially some of the women that were writing the memoirs about their lives. There was a little bit of a different vibe going off in that direction. So I wanted to...
Where the vibe is that they're overcoming something?
Yes.
They're like a self-therapy thing with the writing. It's helps get things out.
Right. And I didn't feel like the writers groups were nurturing that vibe as much as it needed to be. So what I wanted to do was, it's kind of like I'm growing this amazing plant, right? And it's got all this greenery and flourishing, and this is the Coffee House Writers group, right? But then for some reason or another, there's this like beautiful flower over here growing all on its own, and that's my RAIN group. And so I wanted to isolate that from the Coffee House Writers group. I wanted to make it its own entity. So I took that and clipped it from the writers group and planted it somewhere else, and now I'm nurturing that somewhere else, and it's budding up these beautiful flowers now that are, it's wonderful how things link into each other and grow other things.
Did you ever start or think about writing a memoir yourself?
Yes, several times.
I mean, you've not only done a lot, as most people who write memoirs, part of the attraction is, oh, they did so much. I want to learn about how they did that and what that struggle was like. But then you've also been through a lot of struggles throughout your life that we've talked about over this past year plus, that admirable, just your tenacious drive to get through all of the adversity you have.
Yep. Yeah, I sink or swim. I learned that like really, really, really young. Like, I never had a floaties or a lifesaver. It's like sink or swim. And I know that writing about it helped me through it. I know writing in general when I was a child helped me escape that.
So, what, for like school assignments? That they were just like, write it, or do you just have a pen and paper and it's like, I want to write something?
Yeah, no, school assignments didn't tell me to write.
They didn't tell you to write?
No, I wanted to
That's
write.
too bad.
Yeah. No. Some of my high school teachers saw that I could write, and they were very nurturing with my gifts and talent in the writing. And they were very encouraging, got me into joining competitions and writing contests and stuff like that. So that was cool.
Is that why you wanted to create writing contests in schools recently?
Yes, because I thought that was the coolest thing when I was a kid. So I wanted to be able to create that for other high school students, definitely. I did have my Nana in my life, which was my sister's grandmother. She was a very, very, very nurturing person in my life, she was like my rock. So a lot of my lovingness came from her. And I also had a stepmom, still have a stepmom, who was married to my sister's dad. And she was very, very loving to me when I needed the most. I was like 15, 16 years old when I met her. So those two ladies have had a huge impact on my heart and how I want and need to love others. So
not everybody might know this, but you had a health crisis of your own back in the day. You had a brain tumor?
Brain tumor. It's called a meningioma.
Meningioma.
Yes.
That sounds scary.
I did when I first heard it. Yes. And then I tried to say it back and I couldn't say it. I have a what? Yeah, I accidentally bumped my head on my fiance's treadmill, and I gave myself the worst concussion ever. And I was going through all the concussion symptoms, and I probably should have gotten to the ER, to the doctor that day, but I didn't. I slept. And then the next morning...
So it was like a concussion?
It was a concussion. Okay. It was a really bad concussion. And I went to bed that night. I woke up the next morning, and I just felt like a bus hit me. I felt like a freight train hit me. So I ended up driving myself to the ER. And they wanted to see if there was any swelling or... I mean, the concussion was so bad that when she asked me my Social Security number...
You didn't remember?
I did not remember my Social Security number, and I've never done that before. So, and I started actually crying.
And kids back in the day, everybody remembered their Social Security number. They knew everybody's phone numbers. Now you just keep it on your phone.
No, well, I can recite my social right now if I need to.
Okay. But this is going out to people, so we won't.
Right. So, but the concussion was that bad, and when I realized that I could not remember it for the life of me and started to cry, they took me right in. And they wanted to make sure there was no bleeding or swelling in the brain from how hard I hit my head.
Sure.
So they did a CAT scan, and then I was just waiting. They were giving me pain medication to, because it was throbbing. And then she comes in and she says, I don't know if I can actually... I have this all on vlogs, too, by the way.
On vlogs?
I have vlogs.
Okay.
About this. But let's see if I can remember. She came in and she told me that I had a brain tumor, but a meningioma. But it was like in doctor's lingo. So it was like foreign language to me. And she had to say it a couple times. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. You have the wrong room.
You're here for a completely different reason.
I know. I came here because I bumped my head. So I'm so sorry, but you have the wrong room. And she's like, no. You're Christine Bryant, right? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, we did the CAT scan, and the CAT scan shows right here that you have a meningioma, and that's a brain tumor. It's in your brain. And she goes, she was like patient with me. And I said, well, I'm sorry. You guys must have gotten the scans mixed up. Was there somebody else that came in here and got a scan? Because that's not me. So... That was pretty crazy. I was in that room. She had to say it several times for it to sink in.
Right, and you were just like, oh, I might have some like blood swelling up right here, or some consequence of the concussion, but it turned out to be something completely different.
It was completely different from the concussion.
So in a way, was the concussion like a good thing because you caught it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The concussion was a complete blessing. Yes.
Just one of those meant to be sort of things that help you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
And how long ago was this?
I think it was about a little over 5 years ago that I was diagnosed, and then my craniotomy was 4 years ago in December.
Right. Yikes. And then that was all during Coffee House Writers Group continued to go on.
Yes. And so, I do want to say, when I was trying to educate myself on what exactly the doctor was telling me, I remember saying, because I couldn't think straight to begin with the concussion. Words were not coming to me. And then the shock of what she just told me, I mustered out, so is that a good tumor or a bad tumor?
Like there's a good tumor?
Well, I mean, because in my brain I was thinking...
oh, I see. Is it...
Cancerous, non-cancerous.
Yeah.
So she said, well, it's 99 or 96% to 99% non-cancerous, but we won't know until they actually take it out and do a biopsy.
Oh.
And then, so my next question was, so your brain's in your skull. Do they have to cut the skull open to... And she's like, yes. So it was a lot for me to absorb in that room, because I was thinking, wow, okay, so they're going to cut my skull open. Like, that's bone.
Yeah.
But it was a journey, and I mean, I just went back and got a follow-up MRI. So it hasn't come back. There's a possibility, because meningiomas grow like weeds.
Oh.
So there's always a possibility of it coming back. But I just went back and got a follow-up MRI in December, and I was clean. So
good.
Yay.
Yes.
Still have me. But when that happened with the Coffee House Writers Group, I knew I had to get things in place.
Mm-hmm.
And up until that time, it was pretty much me doing everything. And I had maybe 300 members at the time. They had grown with the group. And I didn't want to stop the group. So I just threw it out there to a bunch of my members. I go, who wants to take over? Who wants to run the group while I go do this brain surgery thing and recruit? And I had 16 people.
16 people. Volunteer for this?
Yes. They stood up and they're just
I'm Spartacus. Oh no, I'm Spartacus.
They all pitched in, and they all worked together to run the group like I ran it.
Nice. Did you have a single person being the moderator that was a constant thing? Or were they all taking turns?
They all took turns. They all kind of pitched in, and they all kind of just took care of the group.
Nice.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And so who runs San Dimas now?
In San Dimas, I got Steve Hamilton, Steve Hirschberger, Eric. Those guys have always been helping out as much as they can. Michael. Right.
And then I think I heard before that Steve was there in the first meetup. Was that right?
Yeah, I believe actually.
Hirschberger, because there's two Steves.
Yeah, they both were.
They both were.
So
I didn't know that.
Steve Hamilton was there pretty much from the beginning. Steve Hirschberger was. Sharice was at the very first meeting. Wolfgang was at the very first meeting.
You kept a lot of these people to become board members.
Because they saw it. They saw the group grow from nothing. And,
they have an emotional attachment to it now?
I definitely believe that they see what I see. I definitely believe that they're as motivated as I am to see where it goes. You know, it's like, it's bigger than us, you know? So
right.
it's just amazing to be part of something that's bigger than us, that's doing good for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's rewarding.
And then, so you're in the writers group, you have this book. How did it last for 6 years? Because it's been a while since I've heard you share something of your own thing. So it wasn't just, getting people to hear your book, that it was when you started, because you wanted to have your book read in the great writers group. And then so you created that writers group, but then the readings, sharings has pretty much come to son of a standstill for you, but the writers group just continues to flourish and expand.
Well, I will tell you, that first night when I showed up and 16 people showed up with their books, and everybody read. Of course, I didn't know if we were going to have enough time, so I read last.
All 16 read?
Yes. We had 4 hours.
Yeah. 4, okay.
So, yeah, I think most of the 16 read. I'm not sure if all of them read, but most of them. But I went last, but I've sat here and I listened to all these people reading their stories. The amount of passion and input and writing that they put on these pages before them, I was just moved. I'm like, wow, I'm not the only one. Like, this is
you found your people.
I found my people. Yeah. So even that first night, there was a shift of my focus. So my focus before that meeting was, I'm going to finish my book.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I got to read my story, my focus was still shifting. Because at the end of that group, all I could think about was, how am I going to help these people finish their books?
So it became, you transitioned more from writer to you wanted to help other writers.
That first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I did come back and I did read. I always put myself last because I wanted to make sure everybody read. I wanted to make sure everybody was heard. Mm-hmm. And then the group started getting bigger and bigger. And sometimes I didn't get to read because I would always put myself last.
Sure.
And it never bothered me because that wasn't my focus anymore. So it got to the point where I wasn't even putting my name on the list because there was no room for me to put my name on the list. But that was okay because, as long as I could get everybody else there, that was my focus. I wanted everybody that came had a chance to be heard and got the feedback that they came for.
Your design and your guidelines, I suspect, are created to help increase the value of that feedback?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I will go back to one of the things that I didn't like going into one of the writers' groups was they started to critique people's works. And it wasn't in order. It was kind of like a conversation. And I just felt bad because the reader was over there sitting down, and all of a sudden you got like 5 or 6 people having a conversation about their work, like what that reader should be doing. And then they would spend like 10 or 15 minutes arguing about what that writer should do with the work.
Oh.
And I was like, that is so unproductive. Why am I here? Why is that person here?
And the writer, the person who wrote it, it's like, not only are they being torn between 2 people, but they're like, it's my decision.
Right. Exactly. And so, that's another reason why, it's roundtable to the right. So that everybody knows when the hot potato is being passed. It's expected.
But not required. They can always pass.
Right. And that was another thing that I didn't like. When people come to groups and stuff, they're not 100% gung-ho, let's jump in and swim with everybody.
So other writers' groups were like, no, you have to give her critique.
You have to talk or you have to share.
Otherwise there's the door?
Otherwise there's the door.
Jeez.
And I was like, okay, well, you know, and then I think if people are forced to critique, especially if they don't have anything of validation to say, I mean, then it becomes fake.
Right. You're producing something, even if there's nothing wrong that person sees, they'll just create something.
Right.
Yeah. So that's not going to be even very helpful feedback.
Nope. I wanted to be able to focus as a facilitator in getting this group to, you know, be the most productive it could possibly be. And that became my focus. And that's become my focus for the last 6 years. And then I have people coming to me going, well, can we start one over here? 'Cause I can't drive over there anymore. Can I start one over here? Can we do this? Can we do that? And so a lot of how this group has gotten to where it is right now is because members are coming up to me and asking me if we can do this or we can do that. I'm not really actually sitting here going, well, you know, let's just, you know, open up another one here. It's not my decisions. It's like, it's actually taking off a life of its own because members are coming up and asking, this is such an amazing opportunity. I would like to be part of it.
The same drive that you had to create this group, you feel like that's rubbing off on other people to make this thing bigger?
I do. I think that, I think people out there that have vision are seeing my vision and they're part of it and they see all the good that it's doing and they want to contribute.
Cool. So when was the second critique group, second branch? Because the first one was in Dimas. The second one it started in Orange? Fullerton. So how long into the Coffee House Writers Group life cycle did that start?
I need a timeline. I'm going to need a timeline to go back with all this. And actually, our second branch was actually in Oregon.
Oregon. Oh.
Portland, Oregon. Mm-hmm. That was our second branch. Yeah, and Long Beach was an amazing opportunity that I just felt like I had to take advantage of. It was one of those things where it had already been its own entity of a writers group, and the facilitator of that Long Beach writers group stepped down. Meetup sent all the members, which was there's like over 500, an email saying the facilitator stepped down. Would any of you like to step up, pay the bill, and take it over? And
I got that same email because I was part of that group, but I hadn't gone yet.
So, I mean, I just saw that email and without even thinking, because at this point I'm thinking I'm in competition with 500 plus other members that got that email. I didn't think about it first. I bought it. Then I thought about it. So I bought it. I took it, grabbed it, and then I sat down and I looked at it, and I'm thinking, what did I just do? How far is Long Beach from me anyway?
Not everybody knows that you gotta pay Meetup as a group caretaker to keep it going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the best investments I definitely think that I could have done for the organization, because for the most part, I look for writers. I look for writers in coffee shops. I look for writers in Facebook. I look for writers everywhere I go. You know, I'll walk up to somebody and go, "Are you a writer?"
What, just someone sitting down on Starbucks with their laptop and their screen?
Yes, yes.
The guy who gets made fun of on Family Guy. It's like, look at people watch me write.
Yes, that is me. I'm constantly looking for writers. A Starbucks barista, you know, their personality just hits me a certain way. Uh-huh. And I'll be like, "Do you write?" "Well, yeah, I do write." I go, "Oh my gosh, I got this great group I want to put you in."
And then with the Long Beach group, once it stepped down, you basically had 500 or so people that were joined that were like waiting to.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I just said, I go out fishing, and it's one at a time. It's like fishing for writers, and I get.
And you had a whole barrel of them for you to just snatch.
Waiting.
It
was amazing.
Yeah, and I just checked Long Beach the other day. We have now over 1,000 members.
That's amazing.
1,000 people that have joined, to be clarified, not saying that they've all shown up, but at least 1,000 people have taken interest.
Yeah. So in just the 1 year.
Yeah, just in the 1 year, it's
Doubled.
just doubled. Yeah.
It's
That's pretty strong growth. And we can see since you bought that group, you can see the logistics of participation and everything since you took over. It took off, right?
Yeah, that's pretty amazing too. Have you seen that graph?
I have seen that graph.
I've shown that graph to a few people, and it's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think that group was started in 2007.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can take a look.
2 years before I even thought of the Coffee House Writers Group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then for it to double like that is amazing. I'm pretty proud of it. And then we have Anaheim and Fullerton. Mm-hmm. I'm not in competition with anybody else there that wants to help writers.
Right, yeah.
I'm their cheerleader. It's like, oh yes, cool. I'm not the only one helping writers. That's amazing.
You don't get jealous of that writers group over there, or anything that's positive and doesn't take advantage of writers is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there needs to be more groups out there like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then none of the people who show up owe a thing. They just show up for free for a meetup.
Yeah, I mean, we suggest highly that we, support the venues.
Yes.
That allow us to occupy their...
And they do that how?
By buying something to eat, or...
Right, when they meet up at a restaurant?
Yeah. Or if we meet in a bookstore to buy a book, we meet in a restaurant to buy a cup of coffee, pancakes, something.
Yeah, but they're not like paying the writers group anything, because like I go to a convention. It's $100 for a year or half a year or something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. And again, I mean, all those groups out there, it's good that they're out there. It's just whatever works for the writer is up to that writer. So, but I definitely want to be an organization that just gives to the writers. I don't ever want to take from the writers. Yeah,
and you don't earn a dime from any of this. You're the founder, president, and CEO, and if anything, you make negative money off of this.
This is true. This is very true. Hopefully that will change in the next, maybe another 3 or 4 years. The only goal I have right now is not to be in the negative as far as, supporting.
Keeping us afloat.
I
her dues and...
Yeah, for the meetup fees and everything that costs to run the group. My focus and my goal right now is to make it self-sustaining. Mm-hmm. So my focus is not really to put any money in my bank. I just don't want to keep taking it out of my bank.
And then to do that, you made Coffee House Writers Group a nonprofit, like legal and everything.
Yes, and we just got clearance from the CPA that we hired that we are still recognized as a nonprofit.
Fantastic.
There was a little bit of a hiccup with the dividing of the organization, so I think that's all cleared up now. And my goal is to get it to the point where it's paying its own bills. And also, another goal of mine is to support and pay the people that are helping me run it. Mm-hmm. Because everybody that's running it isn't making a dime either. None of the facilitators. Right,
not the board, not the moderators, nobody. Mm-mm. Yeah.
We're all doing it out of the kindness of our hearts, and it's amazing. I've gotten so many people to work for free. I think it's just the fact that they know that they're making a difference.
But I know from being a facilitator myself, I feel appreciated constantly. And that's really rewarding that, they got me a Christmas card and everything. They all signed it. They pitched in. They got me a gift card for Polly's. It was fantastic. More than I was actually thinking at the time. It's like, I really appreciate the people that come. They have a gift card deal. I should get everybody a $5 gift card. And then they would have got me one. I feel appreciated. You've got to feel that like tenfold.
I do. And it's amazing. I talked to about 20 people a day. It's exhausting. The funny thing is like when I talk to somebody, they don't know that they're 4th or 5th or 6th on my list. Or the 20th.
They always feel like number 1.
They always feel like number 1. And that's why I think I'm so drained at the end of the day. But for me, I get such a kick out of sitting here and like having coffee with one of the members, or having a phone conversation with one of the members, or having a chat with one of the members, and getting their feedback of the group and how the group has helped them in their writing journey. And I think that is like a huge payment, and it just keeps putting more fire in my fuel. Just more fuel in my fire. Keeps me going.
and you end up paying your bills through a completely different job.
Yes.
You're a massage therapist.
Yes. Yep, almost 19 years, certified massage therapist.
Very nice. And you travel around and you meet your own. You don't have like a location.
No, mobile. You're
mobile. Yeah. And why do you like to do that? I assume I feel like you do like to do that.
I do.
Yeah.
It's another way of me just helping people and being a positive impact, and
heal their sores and their backs and whatever's aching.
Yeah, that's the physical aspects, definitely. I believe that massage also helps the soul. Mm-hmm. Because it's just it's like a mini vacation. It's like a mini 1-hour vacation that people get to put their life on hold. And most of the time people get up and they go do what they need to do, and they're on autopilot, and they're checking things off their list, and they're trying to survive and put one foot in front of the other, and they don't even breathe. It's helping people physically and mentally and emotionally
unwind.
And then some of my clients, it's like it's being nurtured, and a lot of adults
they have that feeling where they miss it from their childhood. They just want to be nurtured.
Yeah, because you get into this grown up world, and
yeah, it's really so much. It's just nice to take a break.
You don't feel like people are actually, taking care of you because you're taking care of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's amazing. I definitely wouldn't want any other career other than being the CEO or president of Coffee House.
CEO and president of Coffee House Writers Group. And then you want Coffee House Writers Group to keep going.
Oh, yeah.
Just like, because if, say, your health took a bad turn or something like that, you want us to keep going.
If I got hit by a bus today, yes, I hope everybody that's on board is going to continue it. That's another one of my goals.
Those buses out there, they're just out to get everybody.
Aren't they?
That's what everybody says. Like when they're just like unexpected death, that's their go-to for everybody, is being hit by a bus.
Well, that's another one of my goals, is to get this writers group, this organization, this nonprofit, to the point where it will live on way past me, and it will continue to help writers way past me. This group was never about me from day one. I mean, maybe, the first 10, 15 minutes of it. But after I started hearing everybody's stories there, it wasn't about me anymore. So it's never going to be about me. It's going to be about all the writers that it's going to help. So.
Yeah. The history. So you talked about Long Beach, and then after you were there for 6 months after you started it, you bought it in December 2014. From right, because that's when we had the first meet and greet, because we had the meet and greet before anything else. And then we had our first critique group in January. That was big. You were there for 6 months.
My goal was to not stay there. My goal was to get it to the point where I was on a good streak, so I can go and I can build and take care of other groups, build up the organization with all the other members' requests that are coming at me. But I knew and I don't know if I've told you this before, but I knew that first meet and greet when I met you that you were going to be a good candidate for taking over the group. I just knew it.
Why was that? What did I say something?
You just had an energy. You had a very good, open, honest, hardworking energy that came from you. And I think what sealed the deal is I think one night after the group, you actually talked to me about how awesome you appreciated how the group was ran. Like, you didn't come up and say, Christine, you need to change this, or you need to change that, or you need to, like, you know, moderate this, or, you know, no. You came up and said, it makes complete sense to me why you run the group the way you did. And I'm like, oh, he's totally taking over.
It does. It totally makes sense to me.
So that was, my commitment, though, was to stay there for 6 months and then pass the baton.
Right. You stayed there for a month or two after you asked me to run it, gave me a little bit of time before I just jumped in to start to do it, and you were right there by my side to kind of help make sure that I wasn't just thrown to the wolves.
Right.
Then after that 6 months, you went to what was once Fullerton became Orange and is now Anaheim.
Yeah, it never became Orange. It went, it went from Fullerton to Anaheim.
Okay.
We moved the group. But it's back up to 17. I think I had 17 people there at the most. It's the Mimi's in Anaheim. Yeah.
When I was there a couple weeks ago, filling in.
Thank you, by the way. Thank you.
It was a really big turnout. It was nice. You know, showed up, and it was Shannon. Shannon. She was there. She's like, you can sign it. You can. I'm like looking. And I'm standing up with my Superman pose, and she's like, oh, you can sign in, and I'm like, I'm Jay, and she's like, oh, you're Jay. Then I ran in and I was like, hi, everybody. I recognize one person who once came before to Long Beach, and I don't know who's new. Christine's out today. The memory kicked in. It still ran smooth. I mean, most people there knew what the deal was, and yeah, it was nice. Eric was there, it's always nice to see like familiar faces there for a long time.
Right.
And Eric, shout out to Eric, by the way. He's doing the scriptwriters group for Long Beach on Thursdays.
Yes.
Every other week.
Yes. You're gonna have to have him come in here and do a podcast.
Oh, totally. Yes. I mean, especially with he's definitely one of the more classically educated among us, I guess.
Yeah. Our Simon Cowell.
He's I don't know. It's good to have tough critiques.
It is, but they need to come from a place of an educated place, you know.
Yeah, because I know I've received critiques before. It's like, I don't get it.
The tough critiques it's not productive when it comes from a place of ego. Like, I know more than you. That's why I'm helping you. Those people we've got people like that, but that's okay. But, you know, I think what works for this group too is that we not only educate people on how to critique, which doesn't always work, right?
Sure.
But we also educate people how to receive the critiques.
Just as important.
Yes, it's just as important. Because they need to know that it's nothing personal, and it's not anything that they have to take home and work with or even use. But it's appreciated if somebody else opens up their mouth to say something.
Yeah, it's great, and I see people continue with the group. They grow with the group. Sometimes you see them grow as people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think that, and I've joked about this before, but I mean, none of us like criticism in any aspects of our life. None of us wants to be told that we're doing something wrong or not good enough, or everybody's got some advice on how you can improve your life. So I think learning how to receive those critiques in the group is like a little baby step. I think it helps them learn how to be okay with it. You know, it kind of like...
That they don't know everything.
Well, not only that, it helps them accept it without that personal insulting connection to it. It just, okay, fine, thank you.
That's one thing that really helps with the group, because everybody that's coming there is pretty much objective. Whereas before, when I was having my friends and family read it, especially when it was my family, I felt like they were maybe seeing me in it. And then, so, I don't know, parts of me that were in it were very obvious, so it's kind of hard to be objective.
And they were worried.
Worried, like what that character who's killing people is like me?
Yeah. You're right, though. They do come with a non-personal attachment to the critiques. But I'm also kind of like pushing the point of not being insulted when somebody criticizes. So like, we teach that in the group. We teach them, don't take this personal. This is not personal.
Right.
It may be helpful. It may not be helpful. But just because it's said isn't any reflection on you at all.
And that fear that people have of being criticized, it kind of keeps a lot of them from reading. You know, they come, they want to be a writer, they want to be involved, they think this is cool, but they're still kind of nervous. And then I even had it where people show up just like, well, I might read later. They're being very non-committal, little bit about that. And then at the end of the night, they'll read theirs or something, or some people take longer. People will just sit there and, you know, pass. That's perfectly fine. They'll be there for weeks. Right? And then you see them join in later.
Yeah. And it's all about them feeling comfortable.
Yeah. You're not going to share and be vulnerable, I guess, in some place you don't feel comfortable.
And I am very adamant about not giving any of the members any excuses or reasons not to come.
Right.
That's like, you know, number one. And another thing that I was going to go back to as far as something, I remember being 5 minutes late to a writer's group and they wouldn't let me in.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's harsh.
Because they already started.
So they're like, we don't need a voice of someone who's 5 minutes late?
It was just their way of laying down the law.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Very strict.
Right. And one of the main reasons, like I said, that I had joined the group that is now Coffee House Writers Group Long Beach, but I never went, because their guidelines were really strict. It like had to be in a format that it had to have like the word count on it, and I guess particularly structured as if you were about to submit it to a publisher. And I'm sitting here at home on my laptop thinking, why? It's not publishable yet if you're bringing it to a writers group. If you know that this needs to be improved, it's like, what does the format have to do with anything? It's the work, it's the words itself. It doesn't matter if it's handwritten or if you make it in hieroglyphics.
Well, I definitely believe that the more strict and the more rules that these writers groups throw out there, it's discouraging. So it's discouraging when you show up. It's discouraging when you're there. And I don't want to give, again, any reasons or excuses not to write or not to be there. So another thing that I've also pushed for members is if they can only be there 2 out of the 4 hours, that's fine. Mm-hmm. If they're going to be, because people have lives.
Yeah. I've been asked that constantly, like on the Meetup message board, people who haven't come yet, they'll message me. It's like, is it okay if I can't get there until 6 or 7? Cause it's like, you know, a lot of people don't get off work until 5, which is when we start.
Right. But you know, when I was at the Long Beach group too, it was so cool that we had waves. We had people that came at 5, left at 7, but then we had people come at 7 and leave at 9.
Yeah.
So it all kind of just works out. And I think members get guilty. They feel guilty about leaving or coming or going or not staying the whole 4 hours or whatever. So it's our job as facilitators to make them feel comfortable enough to do that. Not only, though, to make them feel comfortable, but to lay the energy and the vibe out through the table that it's okay. I know this person's been here for 2 hours, but they need to go home. It's okay. Nobody give them dirty looks.
So what would you say would be what part of the things that help you keep going throughout this, which a lot of people are going to be interested in, is like, people will ask me, why does Christine keep doing this? What is, that is like, what drives her so much to do so much that like, what's like a particularly specific rewarding experience that you've had? I guess here is what I'm asking.
It's every time I have a personal interaction with one of the members and they tell me on their own journey, writing journey, how Coffee House Writers Group has helped. That I think right there is the best reward. The second thing is a lot of the books that have been published by some of the members, they've thanked Coffee House Writers Group in the book.
In the acknowledgement section.
Which is amazing. The third thing is it's fun. It's a lot of fun for me. I mean, I find a lot of joy in doing everything I do with these writers. And I honestly believe with all my heart that writing is so needed. So
what's needed about it, you think?
Being able to express oneself to others and to themselves. It's about learning, it's about growing, it's about self-therapy. It's definitely a way of surviving through this life. I mean, being able to express yourself in any art form, really, dance, singing, drawing, music, all those expressions are needed and amazing. I think writing, though, there's a certain group of people out there, these amazing writers, they're the ones that need a little push, though, for some reason or other. They're the ones that need the little push, the pull, the motivation.
Writers are by their nature introverted, the most of us. I mean, you're pretty extroverted, but I mean, you're the exception.
Yeah, this is true. And I pride the fact that these groups, when you walk in, they are all from all walks of life, all ages, all backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Sexualities.
Yes. The group is really made up of all different worlds.
Right. And we can all learn something from each other.
Yes. And we do.
And we do.
And we do.
And we do. I know I personally learned some things from us. Just people with walks of life that I try to be worldly. I try to experience different cultures and meet different kinds of people. I still can't get to them all. And it's not always natural. Sometimes it feels forced. But, I'll meet someone from a completely different walk of life. Like, I'm not sure that I met anyone that I was sure was Kurdish before the writers group. And then Ava came into Long Beach and she shared a story about the story that happened, decades ago with genocide of the Kurds. And for me, just having her there telling the story happened for her people decades earlier, that it helped put a face on this group for me and help grow everything that I see. Cause I want to see everything. I want to have a lot. And when I can see everything and I see the big picture, I can only come closer to the truth.
I like that. Some people have had really, really hard lives. Really hard lives.
Oh, we've heard some of those in memoirs, and it takes bravery to share a lot of that for a lot of people, and I thank them for it.
Yeah. So and you learn a lot too. Even if you're not sharing your book right away or sharing your words right away, you come to this group and you just get introduced to so much else that's going on in the world. I think it makes a lot of the members worldly. I do. Because you're basically jumping into the heads of all these people.
I kind of know what you mean, because I'll read a fantasy to the group And it was like, well, this is not my genre, but, and, you know, especially after a few weeks, they'll, like when John from our group is reading, they'll start getting into it because even though it's not their genre, you know, they're opened up a little bit more to more than lit fic.
Well, you know, and that's another rule that I didn't like too.
Was there, genre specific
yes.
ones? Okay.
You know, before I'm going to say there's a genre specific group, there was a group, a writers group that looked like I thought, you know, would be a really cool group to join, but it was for people in their 20s only.
How do you, I mean, it's like people in their 20s in general, especially in Los Angeles. I'm sorry. They're very uncommittal. How do you get so many of them to show up?
I was so insulted. I was like, what? Because I was like 38.
Okay.
Around 38 or something when I started all this. So I was like, well, that sucks because there's like an age now limitation on this group. I'm not in my it just made me feel like, fine, whatever.
They wanted to make sure that they kept the older white guys out.
I guess. So the other thing, too, that I bumped into was, they're like brick walls. Bumping into these brick walls was genre-specific groups. Mm-hmm. Where, you know, it's like we only write children's books over here. We only write mysteries over here. We only write sci-fi over here. And I swear I felt like I was back in high school again with like cliques.
The cliques, yeah.
I was like, really? This is not cool. So,
yeah, and they're throwing TPs at each other.
I wanted to create an opportunity for us to learn from each other. And I don't see any other better way of learning from each other than learning each other's genres, you know, because it's...
And there's different challenges to each one of them, and you can learn from that.
I think it broadens the writing perspective of the writer. Right. And I think that it pulls them out of their box. And when a writer can get pulled out of their box, they go back into that box not fitting the same way because now they're too big for it. You know, their minds have been broadened, their horizons expanded, their imaginations pulled a little bit beyond what they're used to. So they take all that back to their own genre. No one's asking people to write outside of their genre. But I definitely believe that when you go and you explore other genres like that, and what better way to do it than a writer's group where you're learning about that other person.
And if anything, it's a good exercise. Even the critiquing part is a good exercise to where you understand everything that's going around, because if you're only doing what you feel comfortable doing, you're not growing.
Yes, that's perfectly, yes. I believe that with all my heart and soul, for sure. That's what my book is about. One of them.
One of them, the
high heel book.
The high heel book.
That's what that's about. Yeah.
I mean, I tell you, I love and appreciate Coffee House Writers Group. When my book gets published, and I'm using when now, I didn't always used to use when my book is published,
yay,
acknowledgement will be definitely for Coffee House Writers Group.
Awesome. And we're going to just sell 1,000 copies of it.
I'm looking a little bit higher than 1,000, but...
Okay, 1 million. We're going to sell 1 million.
1 million, that's good. That's good. I would be pretty happy.
Okay.
I'd be pretty happy with that. All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, way to kick it off. And we have many more to come. For more information on Coffee House Writers Group, visit chwriters.org. You can follow us on Twitter at CHWritersGroup. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/coffeehousewritersgroup. And of course, come to one of our critique meetings, or one of the other many meets we have. Find us on meetup.com/coffeehousewritersgroup for our group in San Dimas, /coffeehousewritersgroup Long Beach for our group in Long Beach, and then Fullerton, Claremont, and Anaheim. Substitute the name of the city in the URL. And until next time, go forth and create.